Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Believe in Bengals podcast. Yours truly, Solomon Wilcots, of course. This podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. I'm Solomon Wilcots, and we're joined by our Cincinnati Bengals insider, Charlie Goldsmith. Charlie, lots of things happening around Paycor Stadium today. Today is D-Day of the National Football League, as you know, at 4 p.m. Eastern Time today. All 32 teams had to cut down to a 53-man roster, which means they had to let a lot of people go. What are you hearing right now? What are part of some of the big decisions being made at Paycor Stadium as the Cincinnati Bengals are paring down this roster?
Well, the big decision today was to just keep 8 offensive linemen, and that's not going to last. They're going to be actively looking at the waiver wire to try to supplement that room, but the plan to develop depth in that room this training camp and this preseason just didn't materialize. So instead of just holding on to an extra guy just to have an extra guy that they wouldn't even really want to use, that's a harsh way to put it, but that's what they showed when they just cut ties with those guys. They said, we'll just look for some external additions. We'll keep the best 53 right now. And even though there's not enough depth on the offensive line and they could use more depth at safety, heck, they could use a day one backup at defensive tackle that they could still add. They'll look for that, but they'll look for all that after getting through this initial 53 cut.
One of the names that jump out to me that is a surprise cut, but I guess maybe for many it isn't, because I thought he would at least maybe fall back after being a starter his first couple of years in the league, maybe fall back to being at least a person that could add quality depth, is Cordell Volson. And you remember when we drafted him, he started as a rookie. This was a guy that, for whatever reason, didn't get better over time, but it seemed to go the other way.
Cordell's scheduled to have shoulder surgery coming up here, so he was already going to be out for the season. He was already in the final year of his contract. So instead of keeping him in the building to rehab and kind of seeing what happens heading into next season, the Bengals, kind of for procedural reasons, ended up just making that move today.
I'm looking at some of the names, the player in terms of the 19 players that was waived. And one of the names that maybe jump out, because when I look at good football teams, the one thing they do have is depth. You want to know how you can tell if you have quality depth? That in these preseason games, because it's mostly the second string guys that are playing, not only are they playing well, but you're winning some of those games. And I thought the way that the Cincinnati Bengals, and we could talk about the defense a little bit later, the way that they performed, it showed that we were lacking at depth on the defensive side of the ball. So when I see some of the names on this list, guys like Raymond Johnson, some other guys like John Meta, to me, it's kind of surprising because John Meta was a guy that could always get tackles, but there's no doubt that Al Golden and the Bengals are looking for more.
I mean, they're looking for more at every spot, probably, except for linebacker and corner. I guess the defensive end room is mostly settled as well. But you look at the fact that they kept 6 defensive tackles. I think that's a position battle that'll kind of continue to play out between McKinley Jackson, between Howard Cross, and between Eric Gregory for kind of like a spot on the active game day roster. That's an area they're kind of looking for someone to establish themselves. With Dejan Anthony now out, that he was on IR, that was already going to be a battle for safety 3 that now turns over to Tyson Anderson, and PJ Jules is this team's backup strong safety, but that room feels unsettled and especially unproven. And then linebacker, just a lot of different things that Al Golden was looking for compared to the previous coaching staff. But the defense as a whole, while it had nice moments on the second string against the Commanders, certainly didn't wow in the preseason.
One rookie defensive starter. You have one rookie who's going to be starting on defense, and that is Demetrius Knight, the second-round pick from South Carolina. What did he do to impress the coaching staff? Was this just basically the position was open because Jermaine Pratt's no longer on the team, or did he perform well enough to win this job outright?
Well, there was real competition there. Barrett Carter was a 4th-round pick, pretty solid. And I bet there wasn't a huge difference in draft grade between Knight and Carter. And then Oren Burks, who's a career backup, but has started multiple Super Bowls in his career because he had to fill in a pinch with different teams. Demetrius Knight, though, never kind of slipped up in training camp. He did slip up in the preseason, and the preseason games highlighted some flaws that he has to correct and some lessons that he has to learn before week one. What you saw was a real kind of knack for playmaking and for finding the ball and kind of a range in coverage that's different compared to your traditional outside linebacker. He kind of has to improve at the downhill thump stuff, but the physicality and then the instincts against the pass both impressed the coaching staff this offseason.
Cincinnati Bengals do have depth at corner. However, it is what I call unproven depth because I think they're really good players in Dax Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt and DJ Turner. But we're waiting for these guys to really perform consistently. We've seen them play well at times, but we also seen at times where it wasn't so good. Why should we believe that now with Al Golden as the new defensive coordinator, that our cornerbacks are going to play up to their potential on a consistent basis?
You can't say that with confidence. All of these guys are just as unproven as they were, at the end of last season, as unproven as they were a year ago. What they'll tell you is that they'll use the depth in that room. What they'll tell you is that Cam Taylor-Britt kind of has been able to quiet down where he's out right now, that Dax Hill will look better in the slot, that they've been able to work on some specific technique stuff with DJ Turner. They'll tell you that, Marco Wilson and DJ Ivy give them specific coverage skill sets off the bench to where they can rotate in if there's a specific archetype of player who kind of fits well against what their strengths are in those guys individually in the cornerback room. So there's hope, there's flexibility and versatility, but there can't really be confidence yet in the cornerback room based on what they've shown.
How about with the safeties, Tyson Anderson, PJ Jules, who you said will be backups to Jordan Battle and Geno Stone. I think when I go to practice, I'm telling you right now, these guys look great. Jordan Battle, I thought, was very vocal. I think his leadership and I think his football IQ is better than maybe what most people think. However, it really is about the sum of the parts, right? How will everyone fit together? How will the communication be? And can they eliminate the explosive plays, whether it's a run play or the pass plays, the deep pass plays down the field?
And from a communication and especially from a leadership standpoint, I think this is a coaching staff that has high expectations for Jordan Battle. And now, while Jordan Battle might not be a guy who breaks up a million passes or turns into Jesse Bates or Micah Fitzpatrick, I think they're counting on him being kind of a part of the soul of the back seven, a part of the soul of the defense. And he's a third-year guy. This is going to be his first opening day start. But as there's kind of been a transition with leadership, Battle's a guy there's hope for in terms of stepping up and filling some of that void.
Well, he certainly is a leader. There's no doubt about it. Look, there's one rookie that's going to be starting on this offense, one of the best offenses in the National Football League, when the Cincinnati Bengals take the field against the Cleveland Browns in week one competition. And that is left guard Dylan Fairchild, the third-round pick from the University of Georgia. He's looked great at times, hasn't he?
I mean, this is a spot, too, where, we've seen a lot of these mid-round picks on the offensive line for the Bengals over the years. We know how this is far from a guarantee to work out. Yeah. And the fact that, yes, the right guard concern, I'm sure, is something that we'll hit on today or in the future. The fact that you're more worried about right guard than the rookie you have at left guard, that's a big win for the Bengals. Biggest story right now could have been, Fairchild flopped and left guard's a mess, but it's the opposite. There's much more confidence in left guard than there was entering training camp. That makes Fairchild one of the big winners of training camp. And while there is that instability at right guard, it's funny, no disrespect, Lucas Patrick's the one who looked like a rookie and had rookie moments in the preseason, not Dylan Fairchild. And maybe right guard will be fine, but left guard especially, they feel good about what they've learned.
How are they feeling about the right guard? How are they feeling about Lucas Patrick? He struggled some in training camp. There at times in practice, at times in some of the games, but I think we believe him to be a better player. When he came over, there was people who were saying that this guy deserves the right to be a starter. What have you seen? What have you heard around Paycor Stadium as it pertains to him?
Well, the right guard battle is not decided. It's open. And Patrick has received most of the first team reps recently. Now, it's also then hurt that Patrick and both Cody Ford have been dinged up and missed last week's practice. we'll see where they're at this week. Jalen Rivers has been strong in there, not in terms of like strong performance, but he's been strong physically in there. He's still a rookie 5th-round pick who's had like a week of practice at right guard. But Lucas Patrick, I'd probably still lean as the favorite in that battle, even though he's had his fair share of concerning moments in camp. They'd kind of just be going on the back of the baseball card there with him. He is a guy who on the whole in his career has held up enough drop back pass protection. It's not going to be a spot you're confident about. You're just hoping to get through. And they also don't have a backup tackle on this roster. So the fact that you might need Ford to kick out to tackle as a backup kind of is an edge too for Patrick, because he can just focus on guard.
Outside the offensive line, this is a Cincinnati Bengals offense that has tremendous depth at wide receiver, at tight end, at running back, even at quarterback. You know, you even like your backup quarterback behind Joe Burrow and Jake Browning. Let's talk about, first of all, the wide receivers. Whether it's Andre Iosivas now going in his 3rd season, you have to like what he brings to the table. But even the other, what I call the second 3 wide receivers, and Charlie Jones, Mitchell Tinsley, and Jermaine Burton, certainly Jones and Tinsley really upped their stock during the preseason games, during training camp. This was a strong preseason for the wide receivers in that room with Troy Walter.
And what you like about the backups in that room is, and you know, Iosivas is a starter, but throw Iosivas into this category as well. Yep. Truly, Iosivas, Jones, and Tinsley can all play all 3 spots. They can all move around. They can all run very versatile route trees. And if they can do this, well, then perfect. You can have Shemar do that because he's not pigeonholed based on what the people around him are able to do. And Burton, there's been some hope for him in the slot over the years. I don't know that that's ever quite come to fruition. He'd probably still be a vertical guy when he's ready and when he's available, and then a kick return option as well. But they have a smart receiver room. They have a versatile receiver room. They have a deep receiver room. And throw in, Gesicki and Hudson, who are basically a part of that mix as well, adding to the options they have.
How about Noah Fant? What did you see with him during training camp? He makes the 53-man roster, and probably rightfully so, but makes it for an even deeper room among the tight end population.
It sounds like, not that they think Noah Fant's going to be Eric All, I guess would be the perfect comparison. But against the Commanders, they had some ideas. There was one play where Noah was just in the backfield on his own. There was a play, I believe he was a fullback. Like, they're moving him around. They're showing confidence in him on the inline. He is kind of their only versatile tight end because Gesicki and Hudson are receivers and Drew Sample's a blocker. Fant's the only one who provides any modicum of versatility, and I think they're going to give that a shot. I think they're really going to look at that and try to use that. Let's see how he blocks, and if he blocks well, then they'll add more and more and more onto his plate, just like they did with Eric All last season. But he's a part of their plans to kind of evolve the scheme.
How do you see things playing out with the running backs in that room? Obviously Chase Brown's going to be the starter there. Samaje Perine can do pretty much everything. You love his protection skills in the passing game, his ability to catch it out of the backfield, his ability to convert the short yardage and goal line plays. And then you have the rookie Taj Brooks, just to name another one. But it seems like they have at least 3 solid players that they believe they have an identity. How do you see those identity or the roles playing out for those 3? And how do maybe some of the others work in the work that they're going to get in the backfield?
This is the best running back room that Zach Taylor has had. I think pretty comfortably too. I think Chase Brown is going to be a Pro Bowler this season. He's also proven that he can play 70% plus of the, maybe even, you don't want him to play 80 or 90% of the snaps, but he's shown that he's that versatile and he's that physical that he can hold up and do it. And he's just an incredible player. And Samaje Perine's incredible at what he does. And the fact that, like, even when there was some more uncertainty of what roles were going to be in the running back room this season, they were like, nope, Samaje, we trust on 3rd down. We know what he's able to do as a pass protector and on some checkdowns out of the backfield. They felt like he fit in so cleanly in a way that's really going to be able to spell Chase Brown when he needs it. And then Taj Brooks, it's funny too. I think Perine can run between the tackles. They didn't have that with their backup running back last season, but Taj Brooks gives them another just comfortable, smooth, fluid runner who, if Brown was dinged up, another running back they are comfortable giving the ball to, which frankly they weren't with Travion Williams or some of the, or Kendall Milton or some of the other backup and third string running backs they've had over the last couple of years. So 3 guys they trust carrying the ball. 2 guys for now, and Brown and Piron, they trust out of the backfield as receivers. And I think Brooks is on his way. He had some moments in camp. They really like what they have.
All right. Look, we talk about this 53-man roster, and the elephant in the room is, will Joe Burrow, will the offense, will this team be ready to go? Will they be ready to play at, say, mid-season form, week 1 against the Cleveland Browns? There's no doubt Zach Taylor wanted to structure training camp and the preseason games in a way that really would allow this team to play at their best. We're going to talk about Trey Hendrickson in a moment, but just in talking about the starters and talking about Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, this offense being up and running and clicking when they take the field against the likes of Myles Garrett week 1. We haven't showed well up in Cleveland in quite some time. What's your sense for how ready this team is to play over and above the performance we saw on opening day 1 year ago against the New England Patriots?
Well, it's a controversial opinion. I always go back to the question of who really struggled in week 1 last season. What I believe is that the people who have struggled the most at the start of the season have been the guys who weren't 100% ready to go to start the season anyway, whether that was because they were coming back from injuries, because whether or not they were holdouts, like in the case of Jamar Chase. The guys who have been healthy and ready to go have performed up to their expectations. I think over the last 3 years, 4 years, week 1, week 2, week 3. For example, the defense last year, sure, they struggled tackling against the Patriots, but it turned out it was just a defense that was bad at tackling. It wasn't a defense that had a slow start problem. It was a defense that had a problem. And then they actually played pretty well week 2 against the Chiefs. So yeah. I think they're just going to be who they're going to be. I think Burrow being healthy is the key. I think Chase being ready to go is the key. I'm not worried about those guys, each of whom played poorly against the Patriots last year. And if they're okay, I think they're going to be fine too.
Well, Joe Burrow said it himself. He can't think of anybody who's throwing the ball better than he is right now. That any quarterback playing better than he. Coming from Joe Burrow, I thought that was a pretty profound statement. So he's feeling pretty good about his game. Look, the real elephant in the room, as you well know, Charlie, Trey Hendrickson gets a $14 million pay raise added to the $16 million he was set to earn during the 2025 season, which means he's going to make $30 million for the upcoming season. When you look at his production, it far exceeds the top 2 pass rushers and players at his positions in TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, who's making north of $40 million a year. To me, I think the Cincinnati Bengals got a bargain with Trey Hendrickson's contract this year, even though they're going to pay him $30 million for the upcoming year. I want you to walk me through how this deal got done. What's your sense that he is going to become a free agent at the end of the year? And can the Bengals use a franchise tag on him and prevent him from hitting the market in free agency?
I bet here's how it went. I bet it's all right. They're talking about long-term deals, but the Bengals clearly weren't that interested or invested in investing in multi-year guarantees. So it's like, all right, we'll give you 3 for $90, but with just 30 guaranteed or something like that. And Trey's like, if you're going to just give me 30 million guarantee and cut me after the year anyway, just give me 30 million guaranteed now, and let's part our separate ways at the end of the season. And that's the path they ended up taking. Now, a franchise tag next year, I believe. And there's a lot of cat minutia here, but it sounds like it would be upwards of $35 million, and that would all appear in kind of a chunk on your books that you couldn't maneuver around and finagle around from a cap management perspective. So that now would be a very difficult ask to pick up that franchise tag for next season. If you were interested anyway and even considering picking up that tag, you would have just offered Trey more multi-year guarantees heading into next season. So they love Trey for 2025. They weren't interested for Trey in Trey for 2026. And now it's kind of not that it's the last dance, but a last dance for the two sides.
Is it safe to say that the Bengals are banking or hedging that beyond 2025, they think the production next to Trey Hendrickson's name will begin to diminish? And why would they feel that way?
Well, yes, they do. You look at the fact that, again, I don't want to, talk down Trey Hendrickson. What a great season he's had. What a great career he's had. What great value he's brought to the table for the Bengals. But he's not a top 5 defensive end just overall in the NFL, especially when you consider his production against the run, especially when you consider just the fact that from a testing perspective, just the raw athleticism doesn't match what you see from the other defensive ends who are at the very, very top of that position. And again, Trey's a phenomenal athlete, but he has more limitations than the best defensive ends in the league. So then when you add the age into that as well and how he could age, that was the Bengals thinking in terms of why they didn't just go all in with Trey Hendrickson.
Trey Hendrickson, 57 sacks in his first 4 seasons with the Cincinnati Bengals. That ranks 5th all time for any player who in his first 4 seasons with any team, and we're talking behind Reggie White, Jared Allen, Chandler Jones with the Arizona Cardinals, and the late Derek Thomas. 3 of 4 of those players, 3 of the 4 are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So what he's done for the Cincinnati Bengals in his first 4 seasons with this team have been like Hall of Fame numbers, have matched what other Hall of Famers have done when they left in free agency, or at least in the first 4 years with their team. And the Bengals are banking that number is going to diminish after the 5th season. I can see why they would think, and particularly with the age, but I'm not ready to bet against Trey Hendrickson. There's no doubt. I want to ask you this as we begin to wrap up. Will Trey Hendrickson start the game when the Bengals take the field in Cleveland week 1 to kick off the 2025 season?
It's the big question that I don't know how you can have an answer to. He's in shape, and I know that he's been working very hard, but I mean, you can talk more than I can about the difference between physical shape and football shape. Will he be ready to play 80% of the snaps? We'll see. And if he's not, well, then what snaps do you want to take him off the field for? Well, those base down, neutral run snaps, maybe some first downs, maybe the first down, especially for a Cleveland team that's going to be lining up a lot under center. So we'll see there. I could see a world where Trey isn't on the field for the first snap, but I think he's going to be able, I expect he'll be on the field for enough snaps to be in a spot to make an impact. It's just about, executing those plays when he's in that position.
This is the Believe in Bengals podcast presented by FanDuel. One last question for our Cincinnati Bengal insider, Charlie Goldsmith. And Charlie, this Cincinnati Bengals defense has not looked up to par during the 3 preseason games. They've given up an average of 171 rushing yards per game. The totals went higher and higher with each and every game after they played Philly, then Washington, and then against the Indianapolis Colts, where they gave up over 190 yards on the ground. Will the return of Trey Hendrickson be enough to help this defense to improve?
Well, it'll help the defense improve. Will it help the defense be good? I haven't seen enough yet to call this Bengals defense a good defense. And frankly, I think that the best case scenario for this unit is that it has some ups and downs early in the season. The offense is the unit that leads the Bengals to wins during the first half. And I think the best case is that in November, December, the defense has a game or 2 games or maybe 3 where they're the ones that make the plays. They'll never be the unit that'll carry this team with where it's at. I don't think they have a realistic chance to be a top 10 unit in the league. But if they can be volatile, can be good too. And volatile enough to swing a couple games, that'd be a success for me.
Is Shemar Stewart ready to be an impact player? And will he start over Joseph Ossai, or do they feel more comfortable with the veteran Ossai being the starter and bringing Shemar Stewart off the bench?
Definitely more comfortable with Ossai against the run. And how this defensive end rotation is going to work week 1 is, to me, one of the most, maybe the most interesting playtime storyline, because we talked about how you might want to manage Hendrickson's rotation. If Hendrickson's playing a ton, well, you'd like to have a Sam Hubbard style run stopper on the other side of him. That would be more Ossai than Stewart right now. Then on third downs, you have the flexibility, the versatility to move an Ossai inside, to move a Shemar Stewart inside. Obviously, Stewart will have plenty of reps on the edge on his own. A lot of moving pieces. I think Cam Sample's going to play. Like, he's good at a couple different things in his role. So a lot of moving pieces, different guys who can do different things. And I don't know how the pieces are going to fit together.
Well, hey, you are a wealth of information, my friend. We want to thank you for joining us on this wonderful Believe in Bengals edition of a wonderful podcast. Of course, the show is presented by FanDuel. We want to thank everyone for joining us on this show. We'll see you next time, everyone. I think we're right at 25.